All right, I'll get started. Let's see. I pushed out a patch last week for at least one pin crash. It's the one that has parent in it. Hopefully that one's fixed now. I'm about to push a PR either tonight or tomorrow for the await hard limits crash and segment cleaner. The trick there was that we need to check on the full status of, or the full status of the segment cleaner prior to doing the out-of-line segment writes, but we also want to allow multiple out-of-line segment writes. So I added support for projecting the amount of unused space that will exist once all permitted writes complete. So that should solve the problem and allow us the parallelism that we're currently enjoying. Next up, I'm going to work on the cache LRU, so that we can get some meaningful read caching. And yeah, that's it. Chenmai?
I'm working on the journal of batching, and currently I have verified that I can put the to write buffer list in the queue and append them into a big buffer list. Then just call the write once if the buffer to write buffer list in the same segment. Before the data write to the disk and can make the transaction return. Next step, I'm going to working on the policy when to trigger to write the big buffer to the disk. For example, the big buffer size, what size it is, and if I need some timer to trigger the buffer to write if the big buffer is not big enough.
So my suggestion is not to use a timer or a threshold. So the sort of natural way to do this is if you imagine a situation where we have a write coming in every second, then you always want to write those the instant they come in, right? Because if you try to wait for a megabyte of them or something to show up, then the latency would be enormous. It would take hours for the buffer to fill up. And any timer you use to offset that, if you make it a 1 millisecond timer, you've guaranteed a minimum write latency of 1 millisecond, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really want to use a size or a time threshold. Instead, my suggestion is that anytime anytime you're not currently writing, write whatever's in the buffer. So that way, naturally, if you get writes coming in infrequently, you'll just write them when they show up. But if you get a lot of them, then you'll start writing buffers that are bigger and bigger, because you'll start accumulating writes while the previous write is still happening. Does that make sense? A bit like how file storage journal works.
Sorry, can you repeat again?
So, as with file store journal, or a lot of journal implementations really, you want to make it so that you write any data that shows up as soon as it shows up, unless there's already a write happening. If there's already a write happening, you stick it in the buffer to be written when that write completes, and then when that write completes, you go ahead and write whatever's in the buffer. So there's always a write happening, and you only actually build up things in this buffer if things come in while the previous write is occurring.
So just like what I do before, use the swipe, right? The one buffer is written and another one is wait there. And if the written list is finished, then swipe to another buffer.
Yeah, the main problem with that patch was, well, I mean, it was missing a lot of code. But one of the things it didn't do was it didn't combine them into a single buffer. It submitted writes for each and every record, right? So don't do that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
The other thing you'll need to take care about is when you hit a segment roll, you need to make sure that you don't accidentally, I can't remember actually how that code works, but make certain that you don't batch up so much that you write past the end of a segment. There's logic in there for rolling the segment.
If it is in the different segment, they will not in the big buffer. It will separate the buffer and write two
Okay,
times.
perfect. That should do it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's all.
Okay. Ronan, what's up?
Hi. Well, while I was away, theoretically, some of my PRs were merged. Basically, mainly the scheduling of the extraction of the scheduling of scrap scheduling code and some refactoring done there. What I'm about to do now is implement the same for Crimson. That was the idea behind this refactoring. That's it more or less. I have a draft of the backend, but it's not yet ready.
Okay. Shreya, how's it going?
This week I modified the multi-device support PR as Sam and suggested, and I also implemented the PC and extend placement strategy used in Sprite LFS, just the way as the paper says, and I'm now trying to test if it works as it's supposed to be. That's all. That's all for me.
Cool. I'll take a look. I owe you a review on the other thing. I'll try to get to it tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see. Sunil? Or anyone else? Anyone else have anything they want to ask or discuss? Horath, Matan, Pawan, you guys welcome?
I can share. Oh, I'll start. I can share my progress. I've been working on implementing cluster logging. I've got to the point where I can send a basic message to the log, so it works now. And I think I'm ready for a draft PR. I'm going to submit in the near time, and that's it for me.
Awesome. So that was you, Matan?
Yeah, this was me.
Cool. That is good news. Yeah, we need the cluster log. That's going to be helpful. Okay. Everyone or anyone else have anything? All right. Have a good day or evening.